Sure, I can multitask. Alright, while I am waiting for the groceries to arrive, I figured I'd make some lunch and discuss all of my policy platforms and positions. Since I am doing all of that, and running for Maple Grove City Council, and I have to replace this outlet that has gotten dislodged. I could lodge it back in, but this is a NEMA 515, so I'd rather just replace the whole thing. I'm going to start this off with the biggest, most paramount kitchen table issue of the upcoming election, and that is the cost of food itself. Some pretty slim pickings with the dressing because of a recent round of algorithmically induced greedflation. This has nothing to do with wage price. This is price. This is greed. This is a small number of grocery companies jacking up the price as much as they can get away with, possibly with illegal collusion from other grocers and their data, and the customers' data. I'm not okay with that. These anti-competitive practices must come to an end, and I am talking across the board. My plan to tackle the rising cost of food is simple. For the federal government even has a chance, I will pass an anti-price gouging law in Maple Grove that is an exact copy of the one Kamala Harris wants to pass. Beyond that, though, I will push for a minimum competition law in Maple Grove. You have to have, at minimum, 6. And we're barely there right now. 6 different companies selling food within the borders. And if that number is not met, then Maple Grove will have to get in the business of selling food in and of itself alongside whoever remains. Competition is almost always a good thing. Like, it is the thing that people will defend the free market with. And the less of it there is, the more of a problem there is going to be. And now we're at the point where we have a small group of billionaires in most industries, but especially big tech, that feel like they are entitled to power and money because they feel special, because they claim to be a genius. Even though they've been making some extremely stupid business decisions. As someone who is on the sidelines playing with Linux most of the time, I can tell you, Microsoft has been making some really bad decisions. They deserve everything bad that happens as a result. Same with Tesla and the entire line of Musk companies. The only one that's even remotely useful is SpaceX, and they don't have the best track record. In fact, they just launched a weather satellite, one of the the GOES R series, the most recent of that, the final one, and that was a huge risk to use that company to put up such hugely important equipment that Musk, the CEO himself, has a direct conflict of interest against. He supports a presidential candidate that would defund NOAA and make the weather radio over there out of the shot, but very necessary throughout the country at this point because of climate change. He would make that not work anymore. He would put a paywall behind the emergency alert system. That's really, really sick and twisted and un-American. I'm not okay with that. I'm not. So, I want to see more competition in all industries. I want some real Teddy Franklin Roosevelt energy, breaking up all of these major companies who are too big. And if they have to fail, so be it. You know, skills are portable and things can be replaced, but people cannot. Recently, there's been like a ton of collusion with prices. There have been the Tyson scandal, illegally fixing prices when it comes to chicken and other forms of meat, other forms of protein. This stuff is going on behind the scenes because they assume they'll be able to get away with it, and they'll assume that the courts will be on their side always and forever. Oh, but I do have a plan for that. I very much have a plan. To rein that in as well. That much for flavor. And these can go back. I have a plan to rein in judges that want to play king. The Sedition 6 on the Kangaroo SCOTUS. That's what it's become. And it's really simple. It can be done at the local level, and I will constantly push for it until it happens. And there are other state and local governments that can do this as well. You don't have to wait for my first election victory. This can simply be done. It is well within the Constitution. In fact, what the Supreme Court itself is doing is unconstitutional, making themselves to be the dominant branch of government. No, it's co-equal. But Thomas Alito, perhaps even Roberts, and the rest of the ruse, I don't believe they've opened and read a constitution in a while. I'm not even sure they ever intended to protect, preserve, and defend it from all of our enemies, foreign and domestic. They're taking money from both. But I know how to save America from all of that and prevent a huge constitutional crisis before it even begins. Here's how simple it is. Judicial review is authorized, and there's a federal law that permits it. I think it's the first law, the one that Washington passed, that gave us the judicial branch of government, that defined what the Constitution made vague. My plan is to put some permissions on it. You can review the constitutionality of a law that has been passed in Maple Grove. But you have to prove that you have enough integrity to do this. Sunshine is the biggest disinfectant, after all. So I'm going to make this very simple. If you want to review the constitutionality of an ordinance that Maple Grove passes, which I will also make a copy-paste of all the state law as a Maple Grove ordinance, so that's covered too. You have to open your books, you have to open all your records, you have to share with everyone all of your financial records, not just the donations, no, the whole thing. Every deposit, every swipe, all of it, every statement, because of the bribery that is corroding the integrity of America's courts, especially the Supreme Court and the Ninth Circuit. Nothing to hide, nothing to fear, as they say. And we want to hold our judges to the highest possible standard because they have the ability to make or break lives with the swing of a gavel. But if they're not willing to do that, if Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito, John Roberts, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, or any combination thereof, are not willing to do that, your gavel goes away, your opinion doesn't count. We don't have to listen to you because you didn't prove your integrity. You didn't give us those 10 years of records, the finance. I also mean communications, every text, every email, anything that isn't requiring some sort of Q security clearance. That all has to be made public. The journalists have to comb through it. Again, nothing to hide, nothing to fear. Every single thing, including the system logs, all the way up until the send button is clicked, enter is pressed, just to make sure that all isn't tampered with. That's how much it would take for the courts to gain and earn trust again, because it's just not there. Because the judges of the Supreme Court, and way too many across this nation, have decided, you know what, because I have a gavel, I also get to pretend to be a king. So that's not how a judge is supposed to work, and the Constitution is not a partisan document until you have Republicans doing everything in their actions to oppose everything within it. Books and guns. Two topics that are very important to America's children, including yours if you have any. And if you don't, that's fine too. So, let me make this point as clear as I possibly can. Shed as much light as I need to. That light being the sense of awareness, otherwise known as common sense. Never believe a news source at face value, especially if it is something that you yourself can test. Let me grab something from my home office real quick. This is a book that is safe for a general audience to read. However, it is matured up. It's for a higher reading level. Its target audience is young adults and teenagers. It's called Infomocracy, and I'm already enjoying it so far. I don't know exactly what page I'm on. I've been reading this in multiple formats, including the best one, the paper one. So, this paper book, which does not require a battery and draws no electricity after it is produced, its carbon impact goes down over time. There's this barcode on the back, and it looks different from a product barcode like this one. See, this has a UPC, and this has something else. Books do not have UPCs. They have something different. And you'll find this number in the front. Oh no, I'm not just going to tell you, I'm going to show you this stuff as much as I can, especially if I win. So, there's this number. It's called an ISBN, an International Standard Book Number. Every country scans the same barcode, except Japan sometimes. Japan has their own system, but it's the same technology, of the same quality, for all practical means and purposes. And this number is part of the library computer, including your school libraries. Libraries, for those of you who have not set foot in one in your entire life, pay attention, this is important. And also for everyone else, you know what a card catalog is. Libraries have a card catalog. This infomocracy book is not something that they're going to put in the kids section. There's no pictures. It might be in a teen section. It seems appropriate for that. There's a bit of drug use. But it's a fictional book, and it's in the teen section. So if there is someone who is 5 years old picking this, the librarian's going to raise an eyebrow. And they're going to ask, are you sure you want to have a book like this? The librarians already have the information for which books are appropriate and which ones are not. If a 5-year-old takes something from the adult section that contains graphic depictions of intercourse of any kind, whether you do it at the self-checkout, which Hennepin libraries have now, or with the librarian, someone is going to have to approve it. So, with all of this in mind, and with the knowledge that people who work in libraries do work, the odds of a 5-year-old picking up Confessions of a Wallflower and checking it out in Minnesota, and especially in Maple Grove, are 0. You would have to do some pretty hardcore social engineering to have any chance of succeeding. The Hennepin County Library already reads books, and Confessions of a Wallflower and books like that are not in elementary schools to begin with. When these psycho and pathetic excuses for parents go to school board meetings with the attempt to ban and censor books that are already curated for the appropriate audience for elementary, middle, and high school, they're doing it because they don't like the material on a personal or religious level, with no mind being paid for everyone else. When I went to that school board meeting in that video, that you can easily find that I am not going to link to, I called this out. I said, hey, if you want to get rid of the pornographic books, give them to me. That's not what Moms for Liberty is about. The very title of the organization is a lie. And if you support them, I I genuinely believe you are a bad parent. You need to have your children taken away from you if you are so nosy that you want to ban books from teens and adults. So let's talk about guns now. Since America has way too many complete and total cowards who would rather have guns in school than books because it's against their agenda, their opinion. What are you doing? Lying about free speech and how much you love it? You never did. Just own it. I'm sick of this twisted, doublespeak, doublethink. I am going to be the candidate that calls a spade a spade. With that said, here's what I think should be done about guns and gun safety. At all of the appropriate grades, children should learn how to properly gun and gun safety. The latter being a requirement and the former being an elective. Beyond the basics of what a safety is and the 4 steps, pull, click, aim, fire, and why defending yourself from someone about to pull a gun would be easier and faster by punching them in the face. And I am fully on board with the Maple Grove Crime Prevention Center doing intense research on how to limit, if not eliminate, casualties. And, oh yeah, I'm doing research on computer equipment. The use of sensors, and even a bit of machine learning, AI, to make those very guns obsolete for the purpose of killing people. Imagine a world where if shots are fired, and ShotSpotter is not this good, I could cook up something better than them. In fact, that should be a challenge for this whole community, for the entire country, and also for Weaver Lake Elementary. Imagine a world where someone fires off a weapon, and the smartphones pick it up, it's replicated, and the computer determines there's no movie playing. I mean, your smartphone can already tell if there's a movie playing. You can control your TV with the smartphone, and it's not on the database. The movie you're watching isn't on the database. It's not in range of the device. So it sends a signal, shots fired, and after 1 or 2 confirms, there goes the integrated public alert warning system. There is an SAMA code for this. There is something called a civil danger warning. Imagine if someone is on the loose, trying to kill someone, up to and including the president, with everyone downstream being just as important. Or more so if that candidate is Trump. Oh, I'm not going to shut my mouth about that one. And within a minute, everyone in the public is warned about an active shooter in the appropriate range and is able to take action before they even hear anything. So, run, hide, fight. You get the message out to the people that run, and if you can hear it, and if you're close to it, that's when you get closer and closer to a fight-first strategy. In my opinion, of course, nothing tested, nothing believed, researching the prevention of gun death is perfectly constitutional, perfectly justified, and if there's enough in the budget to do it, I will push for that. I will work hard to get that passed. Speaking of the budget, while I am moving stuff around, tossing things into my office, which is not my bedroom, IRS, Maple Grove Transit sucks. The very genesis of this campaign was working at a place where I had the early shift and not being able to use my ride. Maple Grove set up its transit system before the rest of the metro, pretty much. It predates Metro Transit, but we don't really need it anymore. Metro Transit exists, and my plan is simply to slot it in with that and make transit the authority of the Met Council in Maple Grove, as well as everywhere else that is done. I believe that Minnesota should have one metro, one transit. You know, in this area. The metro region of Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and all of the suburbs and exurbs. I believe one metro, one transit shouldn't just stop here for whatever reason. There should be buses and the heavy rail, the North Star line, going to Elk River, Rogers, the first exurbs, Maple Grove is where the suburbs end and the exurbs begin. I want to see more transit in the exurbs. That's not really within my authority. It won't be as a city council member. It will not be in my authority as a city council member to take it that far, but I can completely integrate Maple Grove Transit into Metro Transit. And when that does happen, it will hold the Met Council to a higher standard, not as high as fully reforming that, but it will be better just by the virtue of having Maple Grove on its map. So, there's that. And one more thing that we'll do is allow somebody more qualified with handling transit as a whole in a broader area to put in more stops in more service. Imagine a Maple Grove where you can step just outside of your neighborhood onto Weaver Lake Road or Main Street or wherever you live. The bus will pick you up. It'll take you to Arbor Lakes. It'll take you to different parts of Arbor Lakes. And it'll also take you to the north end, to Walmart and Target. And you can get a bag or two of whatever you need, and then make your way back home on the very same bus. This bus, as well as paratransit, the dial ride, will run with increased hours. And the bus from Maple Grove to Minneapolis will be its own line. It'll be an express line. It'll have a stop in Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center. And then you'll be able to go on the rest of your way on this rapid route. That will be your commute. Problem solved. And now we have fewer cars on the road. And with fewer cars means less money spent on road maintenance. As an owner of an electric scooter, I ain't paying no tax when I'm the one making it cheaper to maintain. Yes, there is a weight variable. It does matter. Before I head off to Menards on Sparky, I would just like to point out that getting the exact numbers of how much Maple Grove contributes to Maple Grove Transit is hard. It doesn't have its own line in the budget. So there's something fishy going on with that way of presenting it and this wording. But the point still stands. I just want to avoid the confusion and give our transit system more access and more accessibility. Electricity. Electricity. I thought the home office switch would turn off the home office, but apparently not. So I'm stuck with things like this for now. Only for now. So here's what I got at the Menards. Even with all the breakers off, I'm going to want a pair of these. They're rubber, so if I happen to not flip the switch that I needed to flip, this will help. And there are certainly some chemicals back here. One thing I did not get at Menards was a screwdriver. I left that in the garage. All right, we still rolling, yeah. Okay, so this flathead should do just fine and dandy. All I should need to do here is take the plate off, like so. Ah yes, Phillips and flathead at the same time. I don't know why they're like this, they just are. This got dislodged in some way. To a point where it's not accepting power anymore. I'm really hesitant to touch any of this stuff. Even with the breaker off, and without a thermostat. So constant running, the air conditioner is just gonna be doing that. The furnace is also on to spread the cool air, but it's gonna be constant until I turn the panel back on. And if replacing this doesn't fix the problem, then and only then will there need to be an electrician involved. Speaking of things powered by electricity, I did ride Sparky to Menards, my electric scooter. That's how I save on gas. And if a lot of people buy enough of those, if enough people buy those, it's going to make oil executives very upset. And I am very okay with that. I am perfectly fine with that. In fact, I am more than happy to accelerate that process. That is the kind of accelerationism I can get behind. The acceleration of fixing climate change. And voting is part of it, having some responsible habits and reusing and not going up and down with the bin so often, that also helps. But let's be real, none of us can ever claim to be saints on this. You can lower your carbon footprint to some extent. You can choose train instead of air travel. You can recycle all the things. You can have energy efficient lighting that is durable, that actually lasts the 10 years promised on the box. Please pay attention to the reviews, including some cross-referencing to make sure the data in one can replicate. Oh boy, here's the not fun part that's taking this thing out enough to get the cords. There they are. I know, I'm like 99.999% sure this is off. There's no power going through this, but it's still really intimidating doing stuff like this for the first time. So, even if you turn the breaker off, please have extra protection on your hands just in case. This thing will tell you if you're touching live. I was worried that it would just be mounted in with the screw in the middle. Some places do that and they're dumb. If someone built your house and you can't get these, and you don't need any force to get this out, like I just did, someone built your house wrong. It has to, at very least, touch these sides and stay sturdy and stable. Here's the new outlet. It's another NEMA 515. They did have a 20, but I'm sticking with 15. This thing will not go over 15. And if you take a closer look here, you will see that this is also tamper resistant and that there are two C's in the middle. These two LEDs will light up when there's something plugged in. There are some sophisticated electronics in here and on the back to make sure that there's no overcurrent, at the very least going through these. And, you know, I didn't really read the box. I just needed these, But having these two over there at the edge of the kitchen counter, where you expect people to charge their stuff anyway, that would be nice. And here it said, oh, TR. Is this, there's no way this is GFC. Those have to have buttons, don't they? Anyway. I'm going to get some safety shoes, too. Slip-resistant rubber bottoms. I think white is live. White is live. That right there on the bottom is ground. And black is neutral. Did I get that right? Oh, I can't ask Google. Leap of faith, I suppose. Pretty sure life goes up first. The way America does, okay. Okay, I'm good and safe. Just gotta touch this plastic piece. I don't got it, but it is recommended. And just get this thing out of here. And I am going to completely unscrew this if I can. This is my first outlet replacement. I deserve a cookie. I am a big boy, and I do big boy stuff. The more big boy stuff I know how to do, the less money I have to spend on someone else figuring it out. Or is it the other one? I don't like. This feels so horrible. Okay, I'm good. I'd be dead if the breaker was off, or I would be feeling something. That's for sure. But it can't, I mean, even through the gloves, there would be something. I am good. I can finish my big boy task. Unscrew these enough. Rip it out. Make sure I keep my fingers on some kind of insulator. Fingers, part of my hand. You never know. You know? But it looks like this house was wired safely. So, electronics policy. I support the right to repair electronics, and I love electronics more the more modular they are. Case in point, I'm replacing a NEMA power outlet with a screw that looks like it cannot be turned. But I know it can. They just made it more difficult because this is the ground pin. Safe wiring is important. This is why we have laws. This is why we have a government, because it's not for the stuff you can see so much as the stuff you can't. And someone needs to be held accountable if, say, the grounding pin is gone or the house is wired improperly. No, you do not trick people into signing away their right to hold you accountable for your actions. And I have a very clever way of making sure that is the case. So, you've heard of an arbitration clause, right? You know how a lot of these tech companies and companies using tech will say stuff like, if you don't sign this, you can't use the product. Okay, that's fine. You can put an arbitration clause in there. But void if you go to City Hall and if you go to City Hall, take the arbitration waiver and sign it so you can in front of a notary, say, yeah, I would like to waive my arbitration clauses and make everything from now until the rest of my life go to a court until I sign yet another one of these or move out of Maple Grove. And it will define a new universal dispute resolution process, which is what it's supposed to be. Going to the courts, being able to join class action lawsuits, and barring that, personal liability from the CEO who signs off on decisions. Their hands are never clean. They know what they are doing always, okay? They don't get to hide behind the veil for everything all the time anymore. And I just got one more. I'm sick of people believing that using trickery to evade justice, or saying, you know, I'm too important to face justice. Nobody is that special. I don't care if you are. If you work 80 hours a week or make $80 million a day. Nobody is that special. And if the nation does depend on you that much, we got to find a way to not do that. And look, I'm for a free market. As I said earlier, I support competition. I support enterprise. and private businesses. But no matter how society is set up, I'm not okay with abuses of power. And I am very not okay with attacking people's public safety. You do not get the right to crash into other people's cars because your technology might save lives in some distant future that, oh, by the way, might not ever happen. No. You don't get to do that. And I am tired of it. Working Americans are tired of that. Hot is black. Good to know. Hot and white is neutral. Guess which one I'm putting in last? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this ground here. Unscrew the ground screw. My hands are very sweaty if they were bare. And this was energized. I'd be even more danger. I'd be in even more danger. Danger not good. Be as safe as you can with what you need to do all the time. I know there's a practicality aspect to it, but safety technology does advance, it just doesn't advance as fast as all the others. I like how ground being a bit more difficult is factored in, but the screw here should have an absolute limit. Like, okay, I don't work with how I can't be screwed all the way out. Well, yeah, just gotta bend in and hook the grounding hook wire into the screw. Piece of metal in here. Hook it in and around, and I'm screwing this out a little more. But I'll go further than state law. Schematics or die. So even somebody with a soldering iron... Oh, and banning serialized parts. None of that dystopian shit. Keep it up and I'll make you put a scientifically accurate expiration date on all electronic items as well. I'd be in even more danger. Danger not good. This is a bit more tedious than I thought it would be, but it was nothing I couldn't handle. I just gotta finish up this screw, then put the cover on. And then this outlet is safer, it is upgraded, it is ready to go. I am all for teaching home ec in a safe manner. Part of home ec is safety. Okay, Mr. Bircham? Even Hank Hill knows this. And Hank Hill is the best conservative character. 10 out of 10. No notes. No matter how the world around you changes, there's always going to be the need to adapt enough. It doesn't matter what your perfect idea of the perfect world is. I assure you, it's never going to happen. But with democracy, we can get as much of it as possible. And one thing that is a lot more perfect is this outlet. In contrast to the old one, no shutters, no tamper resistance. A kid could stick this screwdriver in, whereas with this one, it's a little harder to do that. It's a bit closer to the British plug. And, I kind of think that's the meaning of life, to learn how to improve and help others improve and improve things. Otherwise, there's just no point. There's no purpose. Not to me. Okay. Looks like they put some forward compatibility into this. Or at least they would have, if they knew what they were doing. There's no place to put these two screws, so they are going to have to go like that. I'm just going to have to fit this over and improvise later. Okay. But other than that, I'm done here. Failed. Did not fail because of the outlet, but it was on the way out. This house was built in 2001, so most of the outlets, except some in the garage for some reason, they're all getting advanced in their years in age, sort of. Since that last update, I have a couple of takes. And vice versa. The outlet I replaced wasn't actually broken, but it was an old NEMA 515 that was on the way out. I'm not saying that because it was a NEMA 515. I am saying this because it was a NEMA 515 and it was in that exact spot. So, it was going to need replacement soon anyway. I replaced it with a tamper-resistant receptacle. So a 515 TRR, not a 515R. I think that should be how we word this. It's a tamper-resistant receptacle. In all new construction they're required. You can still buy the old ones at Menards, but you can't use it in a completely new building anymore. And personally, I think they should just all be tamper-resistant. That outlets that are not tamper-resistant shouldn't be sold to begin with. Also, what really broke that was an RTD, a GFCI. There was one behind the cutting board that we seldom look at in this house. And for demonstration purposes, this is what it looked like. I mean, when I peeled back the cutting board, you know, when I pushed back the cutting board, that was lit, and I had to hit the reset button. The test and reset button are the same for some reason. But now it's fine. I just hit that button again just to show you. This thing works, and it did work as intended. There was almost certainly some moisture getting into a place that it shouldn't have been. There is an outlet by the sink. There is another outlet by the sink. And then there is an RTD, a GFCI outlet that is daisy-chained and protecting one half of the kitchen and another outlet protecting the other half. That's the side with the fridge. And that side of the kitchen has a maximum of 50 amps before the breaker on that goes. Speaking of things that are broken, there's also the way that council members are elected here. Currently, every 2 years, there is an election of 2 members at large, and every 4 years, there is also the mayor. And some members think it would be a better idea to segment this. They would want to move us to a system where we have like 1 on the north end and 3 on the south end. I'm not really a big fan of this idea. Most political aficionados can see that there is a major flaw in it that would leave Maple Grove susceptible to gerrymandering. Another option is ranked choice voting. That's an improvement, but I have something even better up my sleeve. The one with the arm that isn't broken. Like how we elect members of Maple Grove City Council. See, we could do ranked choice voting every 2 years, but I think the best way to do this, with the least amount of confusion, is to have on the ballot choose any amount. You can choose, you can look at all the websites, look at all the candidates, you can even look at my political campaign website, votemacbeth.org, that redirects to my Blue Sky, but it is still an official campaign website for my campaign, because I said so. You could go on all the websites and see where people stand on the issues, or how they're chatting with their friends, or both, and determine based on that who are the candidates that you like. Select all of them and ignore the rest. Leave those blank. This is called approval voting. It could lead to some wacky scenarios where one candidate will win with 70% of the vote and another with 60%. The point of approval voting is to pick all the candidates that you approve of, and local elections are best suited for this. And also, as you can probably tell, I lost an arm. Temporarily, of course. I was commuting home on my electric scooter, and now I'm using this shirt as a sling because the one they gave me at Maple Grove Hospital was too big. And the smaller one, my wrist, my arm was so inflamed that I couldn't get it above my heart. Now I'm at the point where I can do that, so I feel better in that respect, but it's going to take a few weeks until I can go back to work. So, let's talk a little more about the scooters. I have some more to say about that and technology in general. Electric scooters are a great piece of technology if you have the proper equipment for it. I could be all defensive and say, you know what, this happened, but that is the natural risk of owning a scooter and blah, 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 and actually they're a safer form of transportation than cars, but that's obviously not true. It's not true for scooters. It's not true for bikes. Bikes are certainly safer than scooters because if you get hit, you're going to fall over and you're going to hit your protected head, whereas with a scooter, your natural instinct is to push your hands out to protect your head when you fall over on those, because you're like standing on a skateboard looking thing with handles in the front and a motor in the back. So as far as protecting the rider of the scooter, I believe that everyone should be required by law to wear a helmet and wrist guards, like I'm going to do going forward. That would have prevented my right wrist from getting in a very gnarly accident. I probably would have gone back to work in a week or less, but now it's going to be more than a month. And I'm going to put the scooter in drive mode, so a max 20 kilometers an hour, about 15 miles, instead of sports, which is 30 kilometers or 20 miles an hour. But that's just on a personal level. I don't believe that they should be speed limited unless you're doing something wacky, like in this video, where someone built a scooter that can go over 100 kilometers an hour, 80 miles an hour, highway speed. That's dangerous. If you fall off of that, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. It's not like a motorcycle where if you have a helmet, you'll be fine and get road rash and a big concussion and live. With a scooter, you could have all of that going 80 miles an hour, but if you fall over, your odds of survival are even lower than that of a motorcycle. But there's one other thing that I was thinking while I was in pain on the ground, and that was, the first time I wiped out on the scooter I bought, I did not break a wrist, but I did say something snarky on the way to work. And the way this Segway 9-bot G30 Max is built, it is one-handed operation most of the time. On the right handlebar, you can accelerate and brake with the same throttle. It'll brake for you. And most of the time, that is good enough. But the first time I said something snarky, and then the ABS, the anti-lock and automated braking system, failed to work as I thought it would, and I fell over at a lower speed than the second time on my way home. The first time I was going like 10 kilometers an hour. The second time I was going the full 30. I hit the e-brake, but by then it was too late. I was veering toward the side. I fell over, and I lost an arm for at least a month. In both of these incidents, I said something snarky, and the scooter didn't work the way I was expecting it to. This is a scooter that has Bluetooth access to the very smartphone I am filming this on. That makes me wonder if there should be an investigation. I have thought about calling Attorney General Ellison over this and having an investigation, doing cyber forensics into the scooter and this phone. I'm wondering if the scooter nerfed its brakes because it didn't like what I said. I know this sounds like the paranoid rantings of a madman, but keep in mind, everything I said up to this point about technology and how it needs to be regulated to a point where people can trust it again. Even if that means less time spent yacht shopping by billionaire CEOs. And I'm sure there are other people who have felt similar in similar ways. Here's the fact about technology and the law. I'll start with the law. The Constitution of the United States requires a fair and speedy trial for damages that are, in today's money, a trivial amount. Or in case of life or limb, or, criminal and civil. You have the right to that. And honestly, I don't care that I signed any waivers deferring that to binding arbitration. It's still in the Constitution that I have a right to a trial. And I know the Supreme Court said, the Arbitration Act allows us to ignore that completely, but no, it doesn't. And ever since the Dobbs ruling, the Supreme Court has no idea what it's talking about and can't be trusted on anything anymore, which is why I'm pushing to reform that as well, as I had mentioned earlier. And the second thing is, if you want a fair and speedy trial, every court in America has to be able to do the very cyber forensics that I want A.G. Ellison to do. If someone's not doing their end of the bargain, or if they're trying to kill someone because they said something that the tech company didn't like, it doesn't matter if it's an automated system or not, people need to have access to all the data, all the system logs, if a judge signs off on a search warrant for that. which for the cases of a fair and speedy trial, they have to. And that's also why I believe that tech CEOs should be held personally liable for this stuff, or any employees who would make such a Machiavellian, Orwellian system that is already illegal to make. And even after this incident, I am not going to change my mind on that. You deserve a world where you can trust any and all authority, whether it is police, fire, ambulance, businesses, public and private sector, and of course, that you can trust that the technology that you are using in your hands will not be used for something nefarious. And that's also why I support this kind of legislation. The ones that will force the state to consider what was already passed and whether or not to make it statewide or preempt it. And hold their feet to the fire as well. Kind of like Minneapolis did with Uber and Lyft. But even more aggressive. I am that kind of candidate. I want to work for you on your behalf, even when everyone else who should be doing that is not. I believe that AI training should have a do not train toggle, like a switch, and that should be respected by the law, and if there's evidence that it is not, you have a right to access cyber forensics, sue companies, and if the damage is severe enough, hold the executives of those companies or employees that were responsible for doing something without anyone else's knowledge that hurt people, perhaps even kill people, personally liable. That they have to pay it from their own wallet or face jail time. That might cause a brief disruption, but companies don't die like people. If Elon Musk got a heart attack, Tesla will still live on. And, in my opinion, would be a lot better. More profitable, and they would just sell more cars. Because they would have someone more trustworthy as the head than the guy who thought the Cybertruck was a good idea. I'm also a pretty big fan of Greg Abbott's best idea used in the worst way possible. I plan to reverse engineer that for the public good rather than creepy men who feel it is their right to control what women do with their bodies. Creepy men like J.D. Vance. I would like to deputize the public to, 1, report incidents of sexual assault and battery if they find out about them, or if they are the victim of it, and if it goes to trial and there is a conviction, they get a reward of up to $10,000 from the perpetrator. This is why I am so stark raving mad about this stuff that I want to start piercing and punching holes in the corporate veil. I don't want to do away with incorporation completely, but if you're going to make something dangerous, you should have enough fear as an executive of the law to not do that. I believe that covers every issue in Maple Grove. There is one more, though. I believe that the minimum wage in Maple Grove should be as high as St. Paul. Like, it should be pegged to whatever St. Paul's is to start, and it should go up with the consumer price index. That would prevent inflation. It would get rid of the entire motivation behind greedflation, which is to keep poor people poor, miserable, and suffering, while someone on a yacht party that, again, you will never ever be invited to, laughs it up. You're more likely to hang out with your family on a pontoon, which, if you stretch the definition a little bit, you can call that a yacht. It is a pleasure vessel, and you're having more of a fun time than billionaires if you treat boats like that. But yeah, I'm wondering if Google or Ninebot tried to kill me for saying stuff that they didn't want me to say. And the corrosion in trust needs to come to a halt and catch fire. The trend from IT to lie-tea needs to be made illegal, and there needs to be serious consequences for real-world damage. So, with all that in mind, I appreciate everyone who was brave enough to watch this video to the very end. And as always, subscribe if you like, and share if you care. I really got to work on that hand motion at the end. You know, a lot of really cool YouTubers are really good with that. But, I'm autistic. It'll take me a bit to figure out, but I will. I will at some point.